Hi, welcome to Far From Eden. Sorry, you guys, that I couldn't make a video yesterday. It was a rough day health-wise, but I appreciate all of your patience and understanding. Today is Sunday, so it is Grimm Brothers Day, Fairy Tale Day. I chose one, just I know nothing about it. It is another Snow White fairy tale. Now, we read the Snow White fairy tale that we're all familiar with, the one that's the story that Disney, basically remade and changed a lot of back in the 30s or 40s whenever they released the first Snow White, movie. They, of course, tried to make it more woke recently and then had to scrap that and kind of go more live action based. I didn't see it. I don't really do Disney anymore, but keep up with it because of culture. And that's the thing about culture, is that it is a reflection, or at least it used to be, right? The first Grimm Brothers stories were published in 1812, and they collected those stories before that, traveling through Europe. Why did they do that? Why did they write down those stories? What was so important about those stories? The lessons, right? I personally, I could be wrong. I don't think they went through Europe thinking, oh yeah, this will make a great book and we'll be rich. Oh, these are just super entertaining. They'll never write stories this good. No, I think they knew that these were important truths that needed to be taught to each generation to hold on to something, maintain something, right? And you might say, well, what's something? Well, it's a lot of the good that we're missing in, I'd say, today's society, but in the last, 50 years, 100 years, it's been going away because culture has been more told to us what it should be rather than coming from us. So it's a good thing, I think, in my humble opinion, to look back at what we used to always know, what we used to know about human nature, what we used to know about men, and what we used to know about women. And we knew quite a lot. We knew quite a lot. Sometimes I wonder if some of the red pill content, I wonder sometimes when they're talking about female nature and things like that, do they not know that we used to know about this stuff and we used to handle it? And it isn't, how someone would learn in gender studies, like oppression and abuse and everything. No, it wasn't that. So we are going to read Snow White and Rose Red. I have no idea what kind of little nuggets of truth could be in here. So I'm excited. So let's go. And if this is your first fairy tale with me, this book is well worn. I didn't do the wear and tear on it, but it is from the early 20th century. I think 1930s, which when I first got it, I was like, oh, wow, it's so old. This is incredible. And now I'm like, this book is too new. I've often had to look up the 1812 versions of the stories or 1812 stories that aren't even in this book to get to some of the real juicy stuff that they don't want us to know. Okay. Snow White and Rose Red. There was once a poor widow who lived alone in her hut with her 2 children, who were called Snow White and Rose Red, because they were like the flowers which bloomed on 2 rose bushes, which grew before the cottage. But they were 2 as pious, good, industrious, and amiable children as any that were in the world. Only Snow White was more quiet and gentle than Rose Red, for Rose Red would run and jump about the meadows, seeking flowers and catching butterflies, while Snow White sat at home helping her mother to keep house, or reading to her if there were nothing else to do. Very interesting descriptions of two little girls. I love, as we see so often in the Grimm brothers fairy tales, people described as pious, describing people by their good nature. It's wonderful. That used to be something that was celebrated and something that was beautiful. The two children loved one another dearly and always walked hand in hand when they went out together. And ever when they talked of it, they agreed that they would never separate from each other, and that whatever one had, the other should share. Often they ran deep into the forest and gathered wild berries, but no beast ever harmed them. For the hare would eat cauliflowers out of their hands, the fawn would graze at their side, the goats would frisk about them in play, and the birds remained perched on the bough singing as if nobody were near. I used to love that part of the Disney fairy tales when the animals loved the princesses. I wanted that. I wanted to be where the animals would come to me and accept me and not be afraid of me. That's what I always wanted. Kind of happened. Not so much with woodland creatures, but yeah. No accident ever befell them. And if they stayed late in the forest and night came upon them, they used to lie down on the moss and sleep till morning. And because their mother knew they would do so, she felt no concern about them. One time, when they had thus passed the night in the forest, and the dawn of the morning awoke them, they saw a beautiful child dressed in shining white sitting near their couch. And she got up and looked at them kindly. I'm getting freaked out for some reason. Why is that? But without saying anything, went into the forest. And when the children looked around, they saw that where they had slept was close to the edge of a pit, into which they would have certainly fallen had they walked a couple of steps further in the dark. Their mother told them the figure they had seen was, doubtless, the good angel who watches over children. Snow White and Rose Red kept their mother's cottage so clean that it was a pleasure to enter it. Every morning in the summertime, Rose Red would first put the house in order, and then gather a nosegay for her mother, in which she always placed a bud from each rose tree. Every winter's morning, Snow White would light the fire and put the kettle on to boil, and although the kettle was made of copper, it yet shone like gold because it was scoured so well. Isn't it funny? Imagine that you're reading this to children. What are they learning? They're learning that good little girls work, right? These little girls, I don't know their age, but they were good workers. They kept the house clean. They kept that copper pot scoured, right? They were taking care of their mother, the widow. And this story is communicating how wonderful that is, how beautiful that is. It's inspiring to little girls to be like this and to be happy about it and to be, proud of being this way. That this is a beautiful way to be. And if there are little boys reading it, they think to themselves, oh, that's what little girls do. That's what women do. That's a good woman, right? And I know I can hear feminist leftists, whatever. I can hear them right now, even normies, right? I mean, saying, oh my gosh, that's oppressive. How dare you say they were good little girls because they kept the house so clean and took care of their mother? Who's talking crazy, right? Who is talking crazy? We are so far gone. This isn't far gone. We are. Well, not us, but them. It shouldn't be us and them, I know. Oh, I've lost my spot. I do that. You guys know. All right, so it shone like gold because it was scoured so well. In the evenings, when the flakes of snow were falling, the mother would say, "Go, Snow White, and bolt the door." And then they used to sit down on the hearth, and the mother would put on her spectacles and read out of a great book, while her children sat spinning. They're still doing some work. They're spinning. Remember the last fairy tale where the wife was trying to get out of spinning and she was lying to her husband and tricking him to get out of work? Well, now we've got some little girls who are spinning away listening to their mother read. They're not unhappy. They're happy. By their side, too, lay a little lamb, and on a perch behind them, a little white dove reposed with her head under her wing. Oh, so sweet. But they're really celebrating goodness. They are celebrating goodness and femininity and the works and the feminine works, right? Feminine work. They're celebrating it. It's wonderful. One evening, when they were thus sitting comfortably together, there came a knock at the door, as if somebody wished to come in. "Make haste, Rose Red," cried her mother. "Make haste and open the door. Perhaps there is some traveler outside who needs shelter." So great. What a great lesson to teach your daughter. Like, someone might be in need. Although, we've had this conversation before on this channel about not everybody can be trusted. You guys have even warned me that I shouldn't trust everyone. And thank God you have said that, because sometimes I'm like, oh, but this person's fine. And I'm like, I don't know that. So that's true. It might be someone in need. I don't know. But another thing we've learned from a lot of these fairy tales is that a common theme, a common lesson is that women lack discernment. So make haste, it could be a traveler who needs shelter. So Rose Red went and drew the bolt and opened the door, expecting to see some poor man outside. But instead, a great fat bear poked his black head in. What did I say? Rose Red shrieked out and ran back. The little lamb bleated, and the dove fluttered on her perch, and Snow White hid herself behind her mother's bed. The bear, however, began to speak and said, "Be not afraid, I will do you no harm, but I am half frozen and wish to come in and warm myself." Okay, I know. Grizzle, grizzle. I wasn't expecting that. And they were expecting a man, and it was a bear, and insert all the man versus bear jokes. "Poor bear," cried the mother. "Come in and lie down before the fire, but take care you do not burn your skin." And then she continued, "Come here, Rose Red and Snow White. The bear will not harm you. He means honorably." So they both came back, and by degrees the lamb too and the dove overcame their fears and welcomed the rough visitor. I'm scared, you guys. This is Grimm Brothers. There could be utter carnage. Oh boy. "You children," said the bear before he entered, "come and knock the snow off my coat." And they fetched their brooms and swept him clean. Then he stretched himself before the fire and grumbled out his satisfaction. And in a little while, the children became familiar enough to play tricks with the unwieldy animal. They pulled his long, shaggy skin, set their feet upon his back, and rolled him to and fro, and even ventured to beat him with a hazel stick, laughing when he grumbled. The bear bore all their tricks good-temperedly, and if they hit too hard, he cried out, "Leave me my life, you children, Snow White and Rose Red, or you'll never wed." Never getting married used to be a horrible fate for a woman. Let's just say it. It is true. Imagine this nowadays. Women being told, "Ooh, be careful or you'll never get married." They'd be like, "Ah," I don't even know if I want to get married. Which is crazy because marriage by the government really only benefits the woman. So, okay. When bedtime came and the others were gone, the mother said to the bear, "You may sleep here on the hearth if you like, and then you will be safely protected from the cold and bad weather." Scary. As soon as day broke, the two children let the bear out again, and he trotted away over the snow, and ever afterwards he came every evening at a certain hour. He would lie down on the hearth and allow the children to play with him as much as they liked, till by degrees they became too accustomed to him that the door was left unbolted till their black friend arrived. That's awkward language nowadays. But as soon as spring returned and everything out of doors was green again, the bear one morning told Snow White that he must leave her and could not return during the whole summer. "Where are you going then, dear bear?" asked Snow White. "I am obliged to go into the forest and guard my treasures from the evil dwarves." Oh, Snow White and the dwarves. Okay. "For in winter, when the ground is hard, they are obliged to keep in their holes and cannot work through. But now, since the sun has thawed the earth and warmed it, the dwarves pierce through and steal all they can find. And what has once passed into their hands and gets concealed by them in their caves is not easily brought to light." Isn't that interesting? The dwarves were mining. I mean, we know the dwarves from the other, I almost said original Snow White, the other Snow White story. But from the bear's perspective, the dwarves are stealing from him. I don't have any idea where this is going. Snow White, however, was very sad at the departure of the bear and opened the door so hesitatingly that when he pressed through it, he left behind on the latch a piece of his hairy coat. And through the hole, which was made in his coat, Snow White fancied she saw the glittering of gold. But she was not quite certain of it. The bear, however, ran hastily away and was soon hidden behind the trees. Some time afterwards, the mother sent the children into the wood to gather sticks, and while doing so, they came to a tree which was lying across the path of the golden trunk, across the path on the trunk of which something kept bobbing up and down from the grass, and they could not imagine what it was. When they came nearer, they saw a dwarf with an old wrinkled face and a snow-white beard a yard long. The end of this beard was fixed in a split of the tree, and the little man kept jumping about like a dog tied by a chain, for he did not know how to free himself. He glared at the maidens with his red, fiery eyes and exclaimed, "Why do you stand there? Are you going to pass without offering me any assistance?" "What have you done, little man?" asked Rose Red. "You stupid gazing goose," exclaimed he. "I wanted to have split the tree in order to get a little wood for my kitchen, for the little food which we use is soon burnt up with great—" Sorry, this is a word in this. I'm not going to say it because of the YouTube censor, so I'm going to spell it. I'm so sorry. A little wood which we use is soon burnt up with great faggots. I know that, like, in England, that's like a cigarette is also called that, so this must be kind of where that word came from. But I'm not going to say it on YouTube. Not like what you rough, greedy people devour. I had driven the wedge in properly, and everything was going on well, when the smooth wood flew off upwards, and the tree closed so suddenly together that I could not draw my beautiful beard out. And here it sticks, and I cannot get away. There, don't laugh, you milk-faced things. Are you dumbfounded?" The children took all the pains they could to pull the dwarf's beard out, but without success. I will run and fetch some help, cried Rose Red at length. Crack-brained sheep's head that you are, snarled the dwarf. What are you going to call other people for? You are too many now for me. Can you think of nothing else? Well, women are good at going and getting help. But they're not strong enough to help him. What does he want? Don't be impatient, replied Snow White. I have thought of something, and pulling her scissors out of her pocket, she cut off the end of the beard. As soon as the dwarf found himself at liberty, he snatched up his sack, which lay between the roots of the tree, filled with gold, and throwing it over his shoulder, marched off, grumbling and groaning and crying, Stupid people, to cut off a piece of my beautiful beard. Plague take you! And away he went, without once looking at the children. Well, that's rude. Some time afterward, Snow White and Rose Red went a-fishing. And as they neared the pond, they saw something like a great locust hopping about on the bank as if going to jump into the water. They ran up and recognized the dwarf. What are you after? Asked Rose Red. You will fall into the water. I am not quite such a simpleton as that, replied the dwarf. But do you not see this fish will pull me in? What? The little man had been sitting there angling, and unfortunately, the wind had entangled his beard with the fishing line. And so, when a great fish bit at the bait, the strength of the weak little fellow was not able to draw it out, and the fish had the best of the struggle. The dwarf held on by the reeds and rushes, which grew near, but to no purpose, for the fish pulled him where it liked, and he must soon have been drawn into the pond. Luckily, just then the two maidens arrived and tried to release the beard of the dwarf from the fishing line, but both were too closely entangled for it to be done. So the maiden pulled out her scissors again and cut off another piece of the beard. When the dwarf saw this done, he was in a great rage and exclaimed, You donkey! That is the way to disfigure my face. Was it not enough to cut it once, but you must now take away the best part of my fine beard? I dare not show myself again now to my own people. I wish you had run the soles off your boots before you had come here. Well, then what was he gonna do? Anyway, so saying, he took up a bag of pearls, which laid among the rushes, and without speaking another word, slipped off and disappeared behind a stone. Not many days after this adventure, it chanced that the mother sent the two maidens to the next town to buy thread, needles, and pins, laces, and ribbons. Their road passed over a common, on which, here and there, great pieces of rock were lying about. Just over their heads, they saw a great bird flying round and round, and every now and then dropping lower and lower till at last it flew down behind a rock. Immediately afterward, they heard a piercing shriek, and running up, they saw with affright that the eagle had caught their old acquaintance, the dwarf, and was trying to carry him off. The compassionate children thereupon laid hold of the little man and held him fast till the bird gave up the struggle and flew off. As soon then as the dwarf had recovered from his fright, he exclaimed in his squeaking voice, Could you not hold me more gently? You have seized my fine brown coat in such a manner that it is all torn and full of holes, meddling and interfering. Rubbish that you are. With these words, he shouldered a bag filled with precious stones and slipped away to his cave among the rocks. Are they helping the bear's enemy? I don't know. But they're helping somebody in need. I don't know. The maidens were now accustomed to his ingratitude, and so they walked on to the town and transacted their business there. Coming home, they returned over the same common, and unawares walked up to a certain clean spot on which the dwarf had shaken out his bag of precious stones, thinking nobody was near. The sun was shining, and the bright stones glittered in its beams, and displayed such a variety of colors that the two maidens stopped to admire them. "What are you standing there gaping for?" asked the dwarf, while his face grew as red as copper with rage. He was continuing to abuse the poor maidens when a loud roaring noise was heard, and presently a great black bear came rolling out of the forest. The dwarf jumped up terrified, but he could not gain his retreat before the bear overtook him. Thereupon he cried out, "Spare me, my dear Lord Bear. I will give you all my treasures. See these beautiful precious stones which lie here? Only give me my life. For what have you to fear from a little weak fellow like me? You could not touch me with your big teeth." There are two wicked girls. Take them. They would make nice morsels as fat as young quails. Eat them, for heaven's sakes." The bear, however, without troubling himself to speak, gave the bad-hearted dwarf a single blow with his paw, and he never stirred after. The maidens were then going to run away, but the bear called after them, "Snow White and Rose Red, fear not. Wait a bit, and I will accompany you." They recognized his voice and stopped, and when the bear came, his rough coat suddenly fell off, and he stood up a tall man dressed entirely in gold. "I am a king's son," he said, "and was condemned by the wicked dwarf who stole all my treasures to wander about in this forest in the form of a bear till his death released me. Now he has received his well-deserved punishment." Then they went home, and Snow White was married to the prince, and Rose Red to his brother, with whom they shared the immense treasure which the dwarf had collected. The old mother also lived for many years happily with her two children, and the rose trees which had stood before the cottage were planted now before the palace and produced every year beautiful red and white roses. Well, call me simple. Good little girls who grow up to be fine young maidens, pious, hardworking, gentle, generous, compassionate. They grow up to have good husbands. What we have here are two high-value women. We have the makings of high-value women, grown up, goodness gracious, hello, grown up to be fine young women who get great husbands, wonderful husbands. And their mother lived, she was a widow. It helped the mother, took care of the mother. But they didn't just, oh, she was beautiful, so she married the prince, and, he gave her all his resources and she didn't have to contribute anything. Two little girls being taught properly, being raised that work is not a bad thing. Work is a good thing. You can take pride in your work. They were spinning as their mother read to them. So they're learning and spending time with family and working. They kept the house sparkling clean. The copper pot looked like gold because it was scoured so well. When the bear was in need, they helped him. They entertained him. They even helped the dwarf. They didn't know the dwarf was the evil dwarf. Again, discernment. I mean, he was kind of nasty, but it never, when he was nasty, when the dwarf was nasty the first time, they didn't go the next time and say, well, we're not going to help him. They didn't base their actions on how others were treated. You know what I can't stand? You'll see memes like this, and it'll be like, I'll treat you how you treat me. No, that's not how we're supposed to do it. That's not the golden rule. And I know not everybody follows the golden rule. I can't help that. I'm not going to force anybody. We have free will, right? But obviously, the golden rule is what Jesus said, do unto others as you would have done unto you. How would you like to be treated? We used to teach our kids this. We used to teach people, hey, how would you like it if someone did that to you? And it's not, well, he did this, well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean you need to be a doormat. Don't teach your children to be doormat. Jesus also said you have to dust your feet off, right? So, but that doesn't mean, you're nasty or rude or whatever. You just go, okay, all right. But these little girls followed the golden rule. Just because the little dwarf was just a nasty guy who was never grateful and insulted them and everything, they just kept saving his life and kept saving his life. They didn't say, well, he doesn't treat us this way. He's a this. I'm not going to help him. No. They kept helping him. Wow, I really like this one so much. Gosh, could you imagine if we taught these stories to our children today, heck, to our adults today? In the old stories and poetry and literature, we find our truth. They've messed up so many. We find who we are. We remember who we are, and we remember, oh, we used to know this stuff. We used to teach little girls to be good. We used to teach them that having a husband one day is a great thing. It's like, it's kind of a goal, but you have to be a wife first, right? These little girls were growing up to learn to be wives, and it's a beautiful thing. It's a lovely thing. It's not soft life. It's softer than being in the woods and, fighting animals and what have you and chopping wood. Women are softer. Our skin is more sensitive. We can't handle the elements the same as the men. We're made differently. But we are, regardless of how you've seen women behave, we are wired better to handle the screaming of babies and that kind of a thing. We're the ones that our bodies can, life can come through us, basically. That's what it's about. That's what our bodies are for. And that's a wonderful, beautiful thing. It's something we should embrace and enjoy. Oh my goodness gracious. Rose Red and Snow White and Rose Red, the little sisters. They were good girls. I know, that's what you guys would love to find. Where are they? I know. Even if you think you find one, you don't know. She could move around on that chart on the Hot Crazy Matrix. We just covered the original, and then, oh gosh, yeah, because I didn't do it. So the original on Thursday, and then Homath's version of it on Friday, and boy, yeah, it's now that's the truth. Imagine that. We've gone from Snow White and Rose Red being good little pious little girls growing up to be maidens of good character, hard work, etc., to the Hot Crazy Matrix. This is how you prevent the crazy, with how the women are raised. Raised with these values and virtues being, spoken of in a positive way, and what we didn't see, well, it would be a long story, is How did Rose Red and Snow White get to be such good, pious little girls? Well, they were taught properly. Remember, their mother was reading to them while they were spinning. They clearly had a good mother who imparted that to them. You have to teach the little girls when they're small, 2, 3, 4. You can't be selfish. You're not special in the way that, we all think we're special nowadays. Because when you think you're special, then you're above other people, and you will never have a heart of serving others. And serving others is a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. That it's not oppressive or demeaning. For those of us who are Christians, our Lord came here and served, right? But it did not take away from who he was and, his important, all of that. It's a beautiful thing. So, that was a wonderful one. Happy Sunday, you guys. Oh, it's good to be back with you. Oh boy, but it's good to be back with you. I hope today you have protected your peace. I hope that you have found something to feed your soul. And I just want you to know that I love you and appreciate you. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.